My name is Justin Ball. Welcome to InstructureCon. Hopefully everybody's having a great time in beautiful Park City. This is one of my favorite places in the state of Utah because it has some incredible mountain bike trails. So if you haven't had a chance, take the gondola up, rent a mountain bike, go hiking, enjoy this experience because it's beautiful and the weather's great. I am with a company called Atomic Jolt. We do all kinds of custom canvas development, and I'm going to talk about one of the projects that we built here for Instructure, actually. So first of all, I want to talk about some things that are really, really boring. Yeah, the people in the back are already like, okay, I'm done, I'm out. Things like lukewarm water, that's kind of boring, right? We like cold water. Cold water is exciting. Hot water, make lots of tasty beverages with hot water. Lukewarm water is kind of boring. Having your iPhone stolen and having to sit at the bus stop waiting for the bus, that's kind of boring. Sitting just here listening to somebody drone on about boring, that's kind of boring. Some more people in the back, probably like, I'm done, walking out of here. Watching golf on television, that's kind of boring. If you're my age, you used to get up, watch Saturday morning cartoons, and after the cartoons, what was always on? It was always golf. But you had your bowl of cereal, and if you got up and got dressed, it meant you had to do chores, so you watched golf on television. I still think that's kind of boring. But the most boring thing of all, to me, is building courses, or at least building the same course over and over. I know I just offended every instructional designer in the room because you're like, I love to build courses. This is the most exciting thing of my day. But I'm not talking about working with somebody to discover some piece of new knowledge and put courses together. I'm talking about actually building courses. So you've probably had this experience. You get an email, and here's this great sale. You get 20% off that brand new pair of jeans that's going to make you look skinnier. You go to the site, you add it to your cart, you go to checkout. During the checkout process, they say, okay, enter your email, choose a password, put in your address, type in your credit card, choose 6 security questions, give us the name of your firstborn, on, and you're like, I'm cool with the pants I already have. I'm done. I'm out of here. If you've ever had to build the same course in Canvas over and over again, then you know that that's a boring experience. We've had this because we develop a lot of different systems that integrate with Canvas, and we have to test those systems. And so frequently what I would find is after I got all my code done and I had to build everything, at the very end, it's like, okay, let's go test it. So go build a course, add some users, and add some discussions, and add some assignments, and I was like, I just can't take this anymore. Did all this work building the course, or building the code, and now I have to do this boring part that I have to do every single time I want to test a course. And that's kind of boring. But, oh, no, that's not boring. That's the wrong screen. Computers are great at boring stuff and at switching your screen at the very moment when you don't want them to switch the screen. Computers do boring stuff really well. They don't go home at night and complain to their wife and say, you know, today I had to build the same thing over and over again and I'm going to quit my job. Instead, computers religiously follow exactly what you tell them to do, and they will do that over and over again. And so I want to introduce you to Demo Arigato, which is the name of a project that we can be thankful, you know, Demo Arigato, thank you, Mr. Computer, right? Is that how the song? No, that's not. Robot. Okay, so this is a project that we built. Jared Stein, who's been a friend of mine for a long time, said, will you take some code that we have and build this piece of technology for the sales team? Because every time they want to demonstrate Canvas, they have to do the same thing over and over again. They want fresh courses, so they would have to go out and get the common cartridge and generate a course, and then they would have to bring in some users, and they would have to add discussions, and then they would literally have to log in as each of those users and surf through the course so that it would generate some analytics so that they could show the analytics piece. You want to talk about boring? Go create a user, log in as that user, log out, create another user, log in as that user, surf around a couple of times, add some discussion, and then do that over and over again every time you want to show off Canvas. That's really boring. So the payoff for this is that you get to build your courses one time. We're done with boring. Demo Arigato will automatically build your courses, and it abstracts away all the boring stuff, and it will actually surf the site for you to generate some of those statistics, which is kind of fun because then you don't have to do that by hand. All right, so everything is unicorns and rainbows. That's what we like when we're a programmer, except that sometimes it's not. There are a few problems, and I'm going to admit those up front before I do the demonstration. Some of those problems include that it's not entirely user-friendly. This is an admin tool, and you can use it, and I will show you how to go use it, but I will warn you that if you put in bad data, it will do bad things. Computers don't like bad data. We had this happen a couple of times. People would put in a bad URL for one of the common cartridges, and they'd be like, why is this course not loading? And I'm like, well, because the computer can't get to the thing that you told it to get to. Or why is this user's profile not loading? And it's because the image was not on a publicly accessible URL. So with that, we're going to try a demonstration. Now, I am on the hotspot on my phone, not on the conference Wi-Fi, so hopefully this will work. Yeah, we'll see how this works. First off, I wanted to show you this. This is how you build courses. This is the Google Docs part of the presentation. Okay, so basically, Instructure's, I can't remember who exactly does this. Somebody at Instructure does this. They build this spreadsheet, and they add all of the users. So you can see here's a user CSV. So you do this one time. So this is a boring part, but you only have to do the boring one time. Type in my users. I give them a SIS ID, give them a name. They have an avatar over here. That's kind of nice, so that their pictures actually show up in the demonstration. That's kind of cool. We've got this courses tab. So here are the courses that you will see that we can build using Demo Arigato. And you can see it's pretty easy to add a new course. So if somebody comes along and they're like, oh, we really want to do an underwater basket weaving course, because that's really, really popular in colleges these days, I hear. You just add another line, underwater basket weaving, you give it a SIS ID, and you give it the common cartridge URL right here. So one thing to note is all of these are public URLs. If you go to that URL, you'll be able to see this. You can't edit it. Hopefully you can't edit it, so unless somebody messed that up. But you can see it, and that's important, and I'll show you why here in a minute. And the common cartridges are also public. So then we have enrollments. So after you create the users, you have to enroll them in the courses. So this describes a given user is enrolled in a given course. And it gives the type, so you can see there's a whole bunch of students. And then we have discussions, so it'll set up and populate discussions. We have assignments, so it builds up assignments, conversations, and so on and so forth. Okay, so here's what Demo Arigato looks like. That's public. You can go there, and you can actually do this in your own Canvas instance. Now, I will warn you, it does create all this stuff in your Canvas instance. So if you go and you do this, and it creates a bunch of stuff, don't come tell me it created a bunch of stuff in your Canvas instance, because that's what it's supposed to do. You can put in an SIS ID if you want to make these courses unique. I'm going to put in my last name here. And I want to create an 8th grade math course. And with any luck, when I hit submit, it's going to go off and start creating this. Now you can see that it's starting to set up, and it says go get yourself a tasty beverage, because one of the drawbacks is this takes a couple of minutes. So you can see it's found all these existing users, so you end up with duplicate users. The end result looks like this. It has this output log file. It tells you it added some courses, enrolled users in the courses. As Canvas is importing the common cartridge, it checks for the status until we get down here to 98% complete, and then all of a sudden it says, all right, it's ready to go. I realize this is kind of small, but this is just log file stuff, so it's kind of boring anyway. Don't worry about it. It's just saying it's finishing, it's done. It lets you know kind of what's going on. All right, so let's switch back over. Looks like it is still creating. You can see it's about 5% complete. So Canvas is currently importing the common cartridge to generate the course. All right, so while it's doing that, let's go, and I'm going to show you a couple of URLs. And I've provided these URLs at the end of the presentation, so don't worry about writing them down as fast as you can. I've also put them up on my blog. So and it's also associated with there's the Jive room that's associated, I don't know. They're in there too. I had an easier time just putting it on my blog. So, what's that?
It's right here on the page.
It's right here. Okay, so you've got it. Perfect. Awesome. So here is the source code. This is open source. You can grab it, use it, modify it, tweak it, do anything you want with it. You can host it yourself if you find this tool to be useful. It's really easy to put it up on Heroku, which is a site that hosts Ruby. Well, it hosts a lot of different technologies, but it's free. So that's kind of cool. All right, let's see if this is getting closer. It's about 30%. Okay, so while it's thinking about that, we're going to switch back over. Okay. Actually, I'm going to ask, are there any questions related to that piece of it so far?
I have one quick question. When you populate discussions, can you populate who user put it up there so their avatar is with it?
Okay, so the question is, can you, when you populate the discussion, can you choose which user it was so that their avatar shows up? And the answer is yes. So you, I think in that spreadsheet, when it has the discussion, you put in the user's email. And then it says that was the user who posted that discussion. Another question.
Can it also submit assignments on behalf of people?
Okay, so the question is, will it submit an assignment on behalf of people? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
So in the assignments, it sets up the assignments, and then it submits a bunch of assignments. So another question.
The log file that flew by, does it send it to a text file that you can peruse later if there was a problem?
Okay, so the question, sorry, I'm repeating these. It's not just because I have mental issues, it's because they're recording it. The question was, does the log file output to a text file? It doesn't, it just saves it on the screen, so you can just copy and paste it. It wouldn't be that hard, actually, if we wanted to dump it to a log file, but yeah, you can just always copy and paste it. Another question.
Sorry if this is getting ahead, but
Oh, you're good.
so what kinds of activity are the discussion, assignments?
Okay, so the question is, what kinds of activity, discussion, assignments, and the answer is both of those. It does discussions, it does assignments. We started down the path of quizzes, but it turns out quizzes are actually pretty complicated because we have to generate the quizzes and then we'd have to go through and fill out all the quizzes. So we sort of punted because this was a small project and we decided it just wasn't, we just didn't have enough time. The other thing that it does do is it logs a student in and it will surf the site. So it browses pages. So then that's important, probably mostly for the sales team because they want to show the analytics packages associated with Canvas. And so it's important that you can show activity across the site. All right. Anything else? Oh, back here.
Is this modular so that you could not do some things and do other things?
Okay, is this modular so you can do some things and not others? And sort of. If you want to go in and comment out some code, yes. But there's not a checkbox. Let's see. Let me go back to what you can do here. There are a couple things that it lets you pick, like do you want to generate the Welcome to Canvas course, and then do you want to generate these courses? We originally had a few other options on here. One was to install LTI tools. It does not show up here because I don't have one of the Magic Instructure accounts. If you are an employee at Instructure, there's a couple more options you get, mainly because those are only relevant to the guys inside of Instructure. But if you wanted to, say, modify this a little bit, I don't want to add this, assignments, you would just go in and comment out a small piece of code. So that's why it's open source, and it's most likely if you're going to reuse this, you're probably going to grab it, push it up on Heroku, and run your own instance, unless you want to install the courses that Instructure's already put together. So we'll be at Hack Night. If you want to come see it, I'm happy to show you. And I'm going to show a little bit of code here in a minute to kind of talk just a little bit about this. So let's see. There we go. I think it's all done. So here's our Atomic Jolt instance of Canvas. I didn't have any courses. If I refresh this and the Wi-Fi holds just a little bit longer, there it is, 8th grade math. And you can see it's added my last name. It says Ball on there. And there's the course. So that's pretty cool. Now I didn't have to do all that boring stuff. And the next time I need to go test one of the tools that I just built, I can just go here, say build all this stuff for me, and now I install whatever LTI tool I'm testing at the moment. And I have users that I can test with, and everything's unicorns and roses and rainbows. Okay. So this is the code-heavy part. So if you are a developer, this should be exciting. At Atomic Jolt, we use Ruby on Rails. We do a lot of JavaScript. That's the same thing that the Instructure team uses to write all of Canvas, and we mirror that. All right, so let's switch over to this. Okay. First thing I wanted to show was just how we talk to Google Docs. Okay. Working with Google can actually be a somewhat painful experience a lot of times. Yeah, I hear a lot of people laughing. Yeah, I was just at Google I/O last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. And there's a lot of really, really smart people. Like, I actually worked in the Google offices for a couple days, and you sit next to somebody, and they're like, yeah, I just graduated from MIT. I just got done with Stanford. And I'm like, okay, this explains things to me. really, really smart people work there, and so they expect you to be really smart to work with their APIs, I've decided. And so sometimes working with the Google APIs can be a little bit of a painful process. We've simplified some of that. We have some libraries that can talk to the Google APIs. So there's this wonderful protocol called OAuth. How many people are familiar with OAuth? Raise your hands. Okay, so quite a few people. For anybody who's not, you've probably used it before. Anytime you've ever logged into a website using Facebook login, you've used OAuth. So same thing if you've logged into some website using Twitter, and Canvas implements OAuth. So if you want to work with the Canvas API, then you need to talk to Canvas via OAuth. And it turns out we've made that into a relatively simple process. Where is my mouse? There we go. Uh-oh. This is not good. Okay, so the computer has locked up. So computers, like, maybe it really doesn't like to do boring things. This never happens to Macs, ever. No, I don't really want to shut down, but okay. Okay, we're going to do this really quick. And I'm going to keep talking about OAuth while I do this. So OAuth. When you do OAuth with Canvas, it's different than when you do OAuth with somebody like Facebook or Twitter. And the big difference is that when you do an OAuth dance with Facebook, sorry, it's going to restart here in just a second, you always authenticate with the same Facebook. You always authenticate with the same Twitter, and you always authenticate with the same GitHub or whatever that system is that you're using. With Canvas, you have to authenticate with your specific Canvas instance, right? So everybody, probably everybody in this room, you're running Canvas, I'm assuming, or maybe you're piloting Canvas, you're playing around with Canvas. And so you have to say, I want to log into atomicjolt.instructure.com or yale.instructure.com or whoever it is that's using it. You need to be able to talk to that. So in order to facilitate that process, we actually wrote a gem. Now, a gem is just a piece of code that is a library. How many people use Ruby? Anybody? Okay. So there's some people familiar with gems, and if you're not, it's okay. It's just a piece of code that you can reuse. So we created a piece of code that you could reuse. This is not the right screen. All right. There we go. We created a gem that makes it really trivial to do the OAuth dance with Canvas. So if you want, that's also open source. It's free and super simple to use. And I'll show you just a couple of lines how to use that. So we use another thing called Devise. Don't worry too much about what Devise is, other than it handles logins. Okay, and with just this small amount of code right here. Okay, we can talk to Canvas. So it says, we want to use this OmniAuth, which is another gem that does OAuth for you. And when you do that, we will pass in the specific Canvas URL, whether that comes from parameters, meaning coming from the URL, it comes from the session, meaning a piece of memory that the computer can get a hold of, or if it's just a static value that we set. So that way we're able to pass the specific atomicjolt.instructure.com or usu.instructure.com, whatever your URL is. And that's what Demo Arigato is using. So give me another screen, go to Demo Arigato. I'm going to sign out really quick, and I'll just demonstrate that. So on this screen right here, Demo is the one that Instructure uses. If I type in Atomic Jolt, this is the beginning of the OAuth dance. So Facebook login, there would just be the Facebook Connect button. You've probably seen that. You just push the button. You go to Facebook, and it says, hey, this website wants to have access to everything that you ever said, known, all your friends, family. Yeah, anyway. And you say no, whatever. In this case, we have to type in the URL. I hit login, and this will go out and say, hey, Demo Arigato wants to access your Canvas account. And I say, sure. And by doing that, now I have an API key. And with that API key, that's what I can use to run all this magic, create all these courses, and do all these interesting things. All of the code that does that is inside of the Demo Arigato application. And like I said, we'll be at Hack Night. So if you want to see the details on how all that works, come and talk to us. Happy to show you all that. All right, so getting back to the Google Docs now that my computer's more or less back alive. This is the magic right here, is these few lines down here at the bottom. Can you see this in the back? Do I need to make it bigger? Good? Okay. Everything above this line, there's all of this magic and all of these things that you got to do to be able to talk to Google Drive. And you have to get a token from Google, and then you have to take that token, exchange it with Google to get another token that you use to actually talk to the APIs, and it only lasts for 20 minutes, and on and on and on. And I was like, no, this is too much work. So we just wrote one method, and we made the spreadsheets public. And it turns out you can generate a nice little URL right here that looks like this. And then you just have to give it a you have to give it the ID of the actual spreadsheet, and then you have to give it the ID of the tab. That's the scaret here. And then you go out and you get it as a CSV file, and you parse it, and you are done. Because this is so much simpler for people who don't want to have to like log into Canvas first and then log into Google Docs as well. Okay. So by doing this, there's another file where we did some naughty things that I typically tell my developers not to do, which is we just hard-coded some values. So that really ugly value right there is the name of the spreadsheet, and the little, well, they're not little, the really long numbers below that describe each one of those tabs. And for this instance, that was fine because we're always going to talk to the same spreadsheet. So if you decide to use this tool, you'll want to go in and point and change these values to point to your spreadsheet on Google Docs. Okay? So this makes it a little bit simpler. You just have to make your spreadsheets publicly readable, which hopefully doesn't give you too much heartburn. I came from the open content world. We shared everything. So everybody just share everything, and we can all just be happy together. And then, like I say, this just small piece of code loads the stuff from the spreadsheets. If you do need to authenticate with the Google APIs and you want to do that whole thing, you can look at this piece of code up here and come talk to me, and I can walk you through it. Okay, so I think I have 10 minutes? 9 minutes, maybe. 10. Okay. Any questions about the code that I've shown so far? I realize I went through it really fast, and there's probably, might be a little confusing. Sorry about the computer issue. Yes?
You divide the spreadsheets public. What did you really mean by that?
What did I mean by make the spreadsheets public? So when you create a Google document, you can go in and set the permissions to the world can read it, but not write to it. That's what I mean. Set it to world read.
Spreadsheets with lines and email addresses and things?
Yes, but they're not real email addresses and names. They're all fake.
So they might understand that.
Yeah.
For real.
For a real one, then you probably need to go through some more pain. Yeah, so if you have real student data in here, please don't make that public, because somebody's going to not like that very much, right? You're going to get some phone calls. If you have real data and you're populating real students, then you should do this stuff up here. And by that stuff up there, what you would do is go to this screen and add one more button. And it would say, authenticate with Google. And I would put it like right here at the top. And you would push that button. And that same process that I showed you when I authenticated with Instructure, I pushed the button, right? That's all that it would happen. You would push the button. It will drop you out on a Google page. It will say, Demo Arigato would like access to all of your Google Drive data. And you would say yes. And then it would bounce you back here, and then Demo Arigato would be able to use the API token provided by Google to chat with the Google API to download that spreadsheet. Now, I said that pretty fast, but that's probably about 3 days worth of work. I'll just warn you. Because you're going to have to go out and do some confusing things. Like you'll have to go out to your Google Developer Console, and you'll have to say, I want to authorize this specific URL, and I want to allow it to talk to these APIs. And it can be a little bit of a painful process. I've done it a bunch of times, so again, I can walk you through that, because it's nice to have a little bit of hand-holding when you deal with the Google APIs. Yes?
Well, when you were designing this, did you consider using a local spreadsheet instead of a Google spreadsheet?
Oh, good question. So can you use a local spreadsheet instead of a Google spreadsheet? Yes, but you would need to modify the code. So at the end of the day, when all of the magic begins to happen, I have this Canvas loads controller down here. Let's see. You can see I've just got these methods, sample courses, sample users. This is where the actual spreadsheets get loaded. And you can see that I'm doing Google Drive.load spreadsheet. So that says, please go talk to Google Drive and pull down some CSV. So instead of using Google Drive, you would just swap out that code and say load a local CSV file. And you would do it that way. So you could either upload it as part of the project, or if you want to get fancy, you could add a file uploader and then allow the user to upload the CSV files. That would take a little bit more work, and it takes away some of the magic of the one button click, but yes, you can. Okay. Any other questions? Yes?
What are some of the common issues you've seen with using this?
Some of the common issues. So the big common issue is that users put bad data into the spreadsheet. That's the number one thing that I've had happen. I've gotten a lot of emails. They're like, such and such was using the tool and bad things happened. Like the course wasn't created, or it'll create all the other users, but it won't create this one. And inevitably, it was because of some entry on the spreadsheet, whether that's they did not use a URL that was public, like for the common cartridge to create the course, or the profile pictures. Sometimes they would make those private, and so then Canvas actually is the one who actually goes out and retrieves the image and puts it in for the user, and it couldn't retrieve it. So, yes.
But do you have documentation on how to set up spreadsheets properly so that does not?
Do we have the documentation? Unfortunately, no. I like to write code, but man, that documentation stuff. It's open source. If you'd like to contribute some documentation, I think that probably internally Jared has some instructions that he's talked about with the team. Maybe I don't know that for sure, but unfortunately, no. Copy paste exactly what you see. Yes.
I can come tonight and ask this, but I'm really curious how you push surfing through a course through the API.
Oh, that's a good question. So how do we surf through the API? And let's see if I can remember. Maybe come tonight, because I don't remember right offhand. Sorry, there's a lot of code in here. But yeah, I can. Basically, it's you use the API to load a page, and I can go through and find the specific code, but that's basically how it works. Yes.
Are there any sanity checks on the data?
No, that's the problem. There should be. There's a couple. There's some that make sure you don't do really evil things that can destroy stuff. But as far as verifying like that a URL is public, I didn't add that. Mainly because verifying each URL is publicly accessible would take even more time. And so it already takes quite a while to run the tool, and I didn't want to make it take twice as long to do all those sanity checks. But if we want to add that, like if that was a really critical thing, that's a super trivial thing to add. Okay, so I'm going to post this really quickly. This has all of the different resources. If you go to my blog, I've listed the resources there too. It's just justinball.com. Hopefully that's fairly easy to remember. I have about 40 seconds, so I will plug the Canvas Starter app. That's a tool that we built at Atomic Jolt. So we've been doing this for a very long time, since Canvas became a thing when Instructure was just 10 people. We built one of the very first integrations with Canvas, and so we took all of that knowledge from all the years of building all these tools, and we've put it into one single open source application. So if you want to build an LTI tool, if you want to do an integration with the API, all of the details are in that application, and that will get you probably 80% of the way there. And then you can focus on the specific requirements to build your application and not have to focus on how do I talk to the API, how do I implement LTI, how do I do the OAuth dance. Like, it's just done. That's open source. It's MIT licensed. You're welcome to take and use it, do anything you want with it, or you can come to Hack Night, hang out with us. Happy to introduce you to it, help you get set up and running. It uses Ruby on Rails, and it actually has React set up. So if you've not heard of React, it's the new hotness for building single-page applications. It's the technology that Canvas uses for its JavaScript front-end framework. So you can kind of stay along with the Instructure team. And with that, I think my time is up. Yes. Okay, if you have questions, come find me. Thank you.